And now back by popular demand, a Friday night restoration. This time around it's going to be a Philco 38.7 chairside. This radio is notable for the unique cone-centric tuning mechanism. Came in three styles: tabletop, console, and this is the chairside. You may recall I restored the cabinet several years ago but never got around to the electronics. Now, to make this extra challenging, this radio had been modified. Somebody cut some holes under the cabinet and installed a turntable and a headphone jack and some switches to control the operation. Now, full disclosure, I already went through this radio yesterday and did some preliminary work. Mainly removing both the replacement capacitors and the modifications. So, for example, here is some shielded cable that was added to feed the phonograph in. And here is the power connector they added for the phonograph power. And these are not the original caps. This had been worked on probably in the 40s sometime. So, cut all that junk out. So what are we left with? Well, the original two filter caps were gone when I got it. They had mounted replacements underneath. So I'd like to restore that cosmetically if possible. Similarly, the shielded tube bases have been mangled. Why? Well, because Philco chose to use octal tubes with this early glass envelope. These would be the G types. More common were the earlier metal types. I always thought these were the first type octals, but no, the metal were the first octals. Problem is, these holes, the openings in these bases were not big enough to house the metal tubes. And then after this came the GT types with the straight sides. Well, I do have some of the original G types on hand, and it just so happens a while back somebody sent me a bunch of Philco parts that have been scavenged from chassis, including some intact base shields. So I'd like to install these if possible. Been experimenting with some techniques to remount these. You could just screw them in, of course, except that you need to run a wire through on this one. So you can't use a screw because you need a hole through the center. So they used eyelets originally. Now, I was also missing the original fine-tuning knob. I was able to get a reproduction, and I had in an earlier video explained how this mechanism worked. So with the cones and the cone-centric tuning of these cones, you can loosen these up and slide them around this racetrack and lock them in on your station presets. The way this works is this outer knob, you pull it out and you can swing the tuning mechanism around. When you get close to a cone on a station you want, you push the plunger in, and if you're close enough to a cone, it'll grab it and then shift over, and you keep pushing the plunger down until it's centered on that cone, then you're locked into the station. Well, if you don't want to use one of the presets, you push down on this, which originally had a spring behind it, and it would engage in this knurled outer track. Now, this reproduction knob, the back, is just flat with a shoulder, and it doesn't bite very well. Plus, doesn't feel that great, being plastic versus Bakelite. This is an original Bakelite knob. And, as I said, the filter caps were gone. So, a while after I got this, there was somebody selling the console version locally on Craigslist cheap because the cabinet was all beat up. So I went over and got it. And I'm glad I did because I parted it out and I was able to help out several other restorers. So the power transformer to one guy, a tuning mechanism to another guy. What I kept was cone-centric tuning mechanism in case I need it. And I got some filter caps. So this, not quite the original part number, same part number because the console is slightly different, but very close and it'll fit in here just fine. I do have the mounting bracket that goes around the base. And here is the other guy. So we'll go over here, it's a dual. There's a dual 8 and 4. I'll use 4.7 and a 10. And this was originally 25, a single. I'll use 22 for that. Alright. Now the other thing I have is the original knobs. So here's the outer Bakelite knob. And this one also doesn't engage very well. Also, this is not from my region because the presets are not right. So it seems a little odd because the end user could loosen these up and move them around, although I think you were supposed to take it to your authorized dealer who had a special tool to loosen them and set them around. But the station presets are embossed permanently in the dial. So if you change regions with these, it's not so handy. Now, luckily, these stations are all still around for the most part. MAQ, GN, BBM. These are, well, it's not WLS. WENR, WAAF, WCFL, I think, are all gone. Don't know about MBA, JJD, I think is gone. Basically, I think all of these are gone. Everything I think after LS is gone. And we get another police range. And then it's got another band for shortwave, 5.5 to 19, which is nice because I've got other Philcos with a shortwave. It's just a continuation of the broadcast, so it goes like 1800 to 2.5, and there's not a whole lot of interest to listen to that in that band. But if I put on 5.5 to 19, I can pick up something of interest. All right, now the one last thing is the volume control. This is how it was when I got it. It's this little stubby thing. And from looking underneath, I can see it's a replacement. What I'm guessing happened is the original broke, went bad, and they replaced it. And these have very long shafts on them to get up through the cabinet. So I imagine that this is a coupler, and originally there was a longer shaft, and it was pressed in here and held on by that collar. Well, the shaft is gone. So I've been looking for a replacement for this control, which I was able to salvage out of that console radio. So that will go in like so. And I also salvaged the tone and power switch in case this one is bad. So yeah, the volume control is just volume, not volume and power. This is how Philco did it back then. It's power and tone, band switch, and then just volume, which is kind of nice because you can set the volume where you like it, and then you control the power here and leave the volume control alone. It also saves wear and tear on the volume control. Most radios, it's power and volume, so every single time you turn it on, you increase the volume. So that same area of the wiper inside of that carbon element goes back and forth every single time you use the radio. This, you can like set it and forget it and just control the power over here. I think that's why they use that arrangement. Here's the mangled remains of the original spring that was back here. I can get it from this. And to aid me in all this, I scored a copy of the original service bulletin, which covers all the versions. So the chair side is code 124, and it's stamped on the back of this chassis. 38.7 code 124. So we've got the tube chart with all the voltages, handy. Nice big clear schematic. Parts locator would be very handy because this radio was modified, so I can use this as a blueprint to put it back together, and then replacement list. Now, if you ever work on one of these, I want to point out there's a typo on here. Look down, condenser, part 47. That's the one on the AC line. It's a dual cap across the AC line. Should use safety caps for those. AC safety caps, Y type, or X2. But notice it also says kind of 25 microfarad. Well, what the heck's that all about? This is a Bakelite block. It's this right here. There's no electrolytic capacitor in there. Well, if you just go through this and study it a bit, you also notice that 45 electrolytic condenser, there's no value given. That's this guy right after the rectifier, 45. That's the 25 microfarad. It's typo in the parts list. This 25 microfarad should be up there next to 45. Alright, now we're not done yet. We're not done because about a year ago somebody was selling the chassis for the tabletop version on eBay, 20 bucks, no bids. I had to go for it. And here it is. I've already gone ahead and salvaged the volume control out in case I needed it. And this one's also a bit mangled. Now you can see the metal tubes. This shield's gone entirely, this base shield, and this one, same mangled deal. to fit in this wider base. One of the originals. So this Bakelite base is smaller in diameter than that metal. Just enough that you gotta chew up these shields to get it to go down inside. And then did it to that one too. Now on this one, I got another set of knobs, and this center screw is in fine condition. It's chewed up on all my other examples. I guess people just used smaller screwdrivers when they took these out and just mangled the hell out of them. This one is nice. Yeah, it's got the spring, but most importantly, check out the back of this knob. There's some kind of substance on there. It's kind of rubbery. It's falling away, but there's enough of it left that I can see how this originally was supposed to work. You push this in, and that substance bites into this racetrack, and it works much better than my knobs that don't have it. So there's a section where it's still intact. Much nicer action. Then you get to a section where it's gone and it just kind of slips and slides. So I'm going to attempt to replicate that with something or another. Rubber cement, or I don't know, or just probably just some RTV silicone would be alright. Something that'll stick to both the Bakelite knob and have just a little bit of grip when it sets up. Just a little thin bead around the outside of the knob. Well, the other reason it's nice to have this is it's pretty much all original underneath. So in addition to the parts placement diagram and the service bulletin, this will also help me out. Now this is an added capacitor here. And I think these might be replacements, but this stuff is all stock and matches the parts placement diagram. I wasn't planning, I'm not going to restuff it, but if I wanted to, I suppose I could take some of these Philcos out. One reason I'm not going to is I know I don't have enough. They were all gone from this radio, I think, maybe one left, basically all gone, and there's a bunch gone from this up in here, so I just don't have them. Alright, so where to start? Well, as I said, I already went ahead and did some work. Oh, one other thing about this radio is, unlike my 15DX, this is not hardwired. There's a plug on it, so you can take the speaker and put it aside. Now, I don't know what was going on with the speaker. Somebody was tinkering around with it and did some splicing. Probably, whoever did the modification for the turntable. So I got to undo that stuff, make this neat, and hope the speaker's still good. Cone's alright except for one tear. Pretty darn big, beefy speaker too. About as beefy as the ones in that 15DX. Uses a 6F6 output tube, I do believe. Oh, something else curious. Look at the size of the power transformer in this, the chairside version. And check out the size in the tabletop. Tabletop's much bigger. 37, 78, 33, and maybe that explains it. Maybe this is not the original Philco. I don't see a part number on it, or that is most definitely the original. Alright, well, whatever. It is what it is. So, let's check underneath this guy now. I found that this is the most comfortable or stable position to set these in while working on them. It's braced on a corner of the frame for the tuning mechanism, and then bottom of the chassis. It's a little bit, if you put too much force on it, though, it'll tip over this way and fall over. So you gotta be a little bit careful. Alright, so, okay, 2 original caps left, whatever. So I'm going to take out this and pop in one of these two guys. I've already tested this one and it's good, plus it's got a nice brass shaft which matches this one, so we'll go with this. Got to clean off the lugs. And I figured I would start working from here and go up. So first thing, Bakelite block. That's where the AC power comes in. That's where they had spliced in this power for the turntable, and here are the remains of the original power cord. I'm going to clean off these lugs, get this out, mount into 2 new safety caps, reinstall it, and a line cord. Let's start working up. Here is where one of the electrolytics would have come through. Don't think this was originally mounted like that one. So originally this electrolytic would have come through down here. And I'm pretty sure this resistor would have mounted onto this lug here. So I don't know if this terminal strip was added or if it's original. But well, it's handy to have it there, so I guess I'll reuse that. But here's where the cap attaches. So I'll undo some of this, get this out of the way. For the first pass, I'm not going to cut this open and restuff it. I'm just going to tack in caps below. And it's all full of crap. I've already cut open this one. Nice thing about these is if you want to retain the original look, easy enough because this collar covers the cut. Bottom of it around here somewhere. There it is. So I do actually have this piece. Just like so. And then this goes over the seam. And there it is. But that's going to time consume me to cut these open and restuff them. So if I want to get this done in one night, I can't be messing with that. I got to get to it. Alright, let's get that big light block out of here. Now, when possible, I like to leave these wired in and just flip it over. These wires are nice and crunchy. One trick with that is to heat them up a little bit, and it will soften the inner insulating material. Before I can get the insides out, I have to clip off little wires down in there to make the inside cap. Let's go. There's a desoldering braid on those too. Just clean out that hole and clean out these lugs, because that's what the new caps are going to attach. There remains a little wire off. I'll do the same for the others. And once those are all cleaned off, I'm going to start chipping away and dig out that block on the other side. Alright, I got the lugs cleaned off. Now let's see about this, which is already kind of bulging out. In the past, I've used heat. I know other guys use cold. Some guys poke it through from the other side. I'm just going to dig this one out. It's the only one in the radio. Two big caps, one on either side inside the block. One thing you really want to be careful of is don't plunge the screwdriver and go like that, because you will just pop the side right off of the bakelite. Clear some of it off first and these will start coming loose. wires are still somewhat attached on the other side. There's two. And there's three. I have to dig out some safety caps to replace them with. So here's the originals. Here are my replacement AC line safety caps. Stick one of them right through two of the holes. Just so happens that the spacing on these leads is identical to the spacing on the holes. Now one of them has to bridge two holes that are further apart. So I spread the leads out a bit. And get that down through the other two holes. Snug down in there. And wrap the leads on the other side. And I did it wrong. Because this is the side where the two leads go together, which is common ground. There we go. And I just wrap the wires around little lugs. Solder them off. Remount it. You could fill this back in with tar or hot glue or wax, but why bother? Individual components are completely encapsulated, so it's not going to add anything to the radio. Before I remount this bakelite block, I figure I'll take care of that capacitor. It's kind of close by. And I'm wondering what this wire is just kind of hanging out here in space for. I don't see it on my reference chassis. No, wait, no, that has a cut wire on it too. Huh. Let's consult this. So we're looking down here. Bakelite block, and there's that capacitor. And not indicate any other. Oh wait. Okay, let's see. We've got two parts down here. It's 34 and 35, which 34 should be a capacitor. 35 1 meg resistor. That's the 1 meg resistor right there. This guy. So what is this thing? Let's see. 37. It's another condenser. Huh. They do not show this resistor on the parts diagram, nor is it in my reference chassis. So that was going to require some additional. It's supposed to be a capacitor there. Sort of. Oh wait. Yeah. This is so awkward. Let's just take the camera off the tripod. It's just so awkward to show you guys in front of illustrate when I got two chassis here. So here's this guy. 1 meg resistor, capacitor, and then there was a 100K resistor hiding under it. And then here's their little lead where I was wondering what had gone there. And this guy There's one meg, and here's this resistor. So body and dot. The body is white, which is 9, and the end is the same color, so it's another 9, and then 30, so 99K. So this must be a replacement 100K resistor. Not sure why I don't see it on the parts locator, but okay, that's going to the same point, so that's probably okay. And then there's a capacitor I need to replace between these two stubs. Okay, got that, no problem. But what went here? What is with that wire? So that's on both of these chassis. I didn't cut any parts out of this one, so I don't know why. I've got that floating out there. Well, there's a wire going to that lug, and we got this capacitor. Now maybe this is a replacement, and that's just left over from an old cap that was cut out. I'll just have to trace this out and see what it goes to. Which looks like just straight over to this. Just part of the tone control. So let's see, that's 40 schematic. That guy. It's ground, and then it goes to that switch, and there should be a 0.03 off of that, and go into the output plate and output transformer. So the 41, that's mounted on the speaker itself. So unless there's another wire going from this point. Here's the speaker wire bundle. One going over to 10K. One going right there and one going right there. So this must be the 6F6. And there's a part cut off here. Okay. Must have been a cap going across here. But that's where that wire went. And that would probably be the 0.03 right in there. I think I finally got it figured out. So that 37 on here, that is the 0.03, goes between plate here and that there. Now this guy, 99K, not shown on here, is actually this guy. If you notice, there's no resistor up there on either of these chassis. That's 99K, they traced out the wiring. They put it over here. So this wire that comes off this junction here, snakes all around and around and around, and attaches over there. And the other end goes to this common power supply down here. So there are numerous places it could have tapped in. And I guess for some reason the production chain decided to move it from up here down to here. So good. I'm starting to make some sense out of this. I proceeded to replace those two capacitors. Now I'm working my way up. I just tested the big old 10K resistor that was up in here, and it's measuring way high, like about 16K, so that's going to get replaced. And believe it or not, this huge resistor is only rated for 3 watts. So I'll dig up a modern metal oxide flame-proof type resistor and mount that in there. And I was wondering about one end of it, which attached to this point, along with the filter cap that goes in there, and it goes over to the rectifier. So that's your main point here, right after the rectifier. Well, this version doesn't have that. This terminal strip only has 2 tie points, and they use the lug on the capacitor for the tie points. This one has 3, which works out very much in my favor. So I don't have to rely on that capacitor being installed for mounting purposes. I can just tack in a capacitor temporarily from this point to ground, and I'll be good to go. Well, no, shouldn't say that. It doesn't go to ground. Got to be careful on that. The original capacitor was mounted on the chassis, yes, but the can had a sleeve around it like this one. It's insulated from it. The negative actually goes to this point on this can-dome power resistor. I did test this and it seems to be okay. It's not quite dead on with the specified values, but I'm hoping it's close enough. And then that end of that goes to ground. That's this guy here. So negative end of the capacitor along this bus. And then that goes to ground. The reason being is that having the ground from the transformer, or I should say the negative, going through this resistor to ground produces negative voltages here with respect to ground. They use those for biasing the radio. I'm making steady progress, working my way up. Replaced both these 10K resistors and a bypass here. Now those 10K resistors, pretty important to the radio. So we come off the main highest potential point, tap 3 there on the transformer. 10K, another 10K, and then 51K to ground. That is a voltage divider string. Those resistors were way off, which would throw off bias points on the radio. That's no good. So I replaced both of these and went higher in wattage than the originals were. So that's good. Now there's one more I gotta check. And that is the 51K. Which is this guy over here. So it's a little confusing. This is the highest point. 10K, 10K, then there's a wire that loops back over to this point, and then to ground. So, here's the other side, and what have we got? Not terrible, not terrible. I'm inclined to just leave it in there. It's within 20%. A little higher than 10. 10 would be about 56K. So I'll leave that in there. While I'm at it, let's check a few of these others. So this should be 1 meg. Also not bad. We'll leave that alone. Should be 99K down here. Alright. And this, I think, body and dot. 200 ohms. 20 ohms? Yeah, okay, so it'd be 0 for the multiplier. So 2, then 0, and then no more zeros after that. Didn't know there was a resistor that low in value in the radio. Let's see. Again, it doesn't really line up with the parts diagram. It should be right in there, and there is nothing there on the schematic. But on this, but it does exist on the other one. Alright, we have 20 ohm on the part list. What that I can see. This is 70K, 5K, 10K, 1 meg. 490K, 51K, 1 meg. 1 meg, 51. Uh-oh, another thing I'll have to trace out and try to figure out. Maybe just bypassing some other component that was bad. Not sure, but it's the fact that both of them have it in the same spot sure seems like it's factory. But what else I find a little confusing is that back in the day, they were not very good at making low ohm value resistors. Using this type of dog bone technology, they typically when they're below 1K, they'd use some other type, like well, usually wire wound resistors, not molded resistors like this. I went to Nostalgia Air and downloaded their service info for the 38.7, which includes production run notes. And here we go, run number 2. To provide uniform performance of the oscillator circuit, a 20 ohm resistor was connected in series with the cathode of the 6A8. So that explains that. So I don't know which production run I have, but it must not be run number 1 because it's already got that put in the circuit. I think I'm in the home stretch now. Hope I'm in the home stretch. Got everything done. except for volume control and the caps associated with it, and the main electrolytic down here. The other two I tacked in up here. Convenient ground post, very near where the cap will go if I decide to rebuild it. So I just tacked a couple negative here, positive leads to the wires, and stuck some heat shrink tubing over the end. I've got a real mishmash of parts in this radio because I just wanted to use up some extra stuff I had on hand. Like we got a Sprague Atom here for the 4 microfarad. Got some orange drops. Got a Michicon. Got one of those generic yellow jobbers. So here is the last electrolytic MIEC. Ordered this a while back. I want to use this because it's 500 volts. And the original was 25. I was going to use a 22, but I had this on hand, so hey, why not? Don't know if this is the final one I'm going to use, but I'll use it from now. So that needs to go between here, under that resistor, the bias resistor, the positive, over to this point. So, like so. Alright, getting close, I hope. Get that cap mounted now. I'm trying to puzzle out this volume control. I think I figured out how the tap works. I remember this had been modified a bit, so I was wondering what this terminal strip was used for, and I figured out, oh, they had taken out this wire, and they had wired in that shielded cable into this point, and that's where they had it coming in from the phonograph and then out to the switch arrangement and such. So that was, so I replaced, put a modern piece of wire in over to here, and then that should go on a cap over to here. And then we've got this wire coming through to the top of the chassis. It goes over into this mechanism. Let's try to figure out what the heck that's about. Let's see, more readily over here. Maybe not. Oh, this one's been cut off. Alright, well, what that is for is it's supposed to go into here. What that is a switch. Idea is that when you pull this knob out to tune it, it kills the volume. So you don't hear noise, or you don't hear the channels as you're sweeping around. I think that's the idea. And that is what that is. So if you cut it out, disconnect it from the circuit, that just means it would never mute the radio, so it'd still work fine. And I've heard these switches can also be problematic, so I'll keep my fingers crossed that it's okay. So actually, no. So anyways, so where that goes, actually to the center wiper. So let's switch there, and then also to a capacitor that goes off elsewhere. And then we got that 1 meg tap. Well, I think I got that figured out, that it goes through a resistor and a capacitor over to this ground lug, junction of which goes to this wire, which goes to tone control, which leaves one lug, which is this one that's broken off. That goes to ground. That goes to here. So even though it's broken off, it should be fine. So it's just going to get tacked onto that lug there. So if we get all that squared away, I got to examine the speaker. Then we should be ready for a power up. Okay, I think I have the volume control wired in properly. And while finishing that off, I noticed that this coil was a bit loose. Now, it looks like it mounts by sliding onto a little piece of metal that sticks out. That's part of the chassis. There's nothing on the other side. I compared this to the other chassis, which doesn't have this strap tied around it. That one's nice and tight. So I bet what happened is somebody was working in this area, bumped into this coil, broke off whatever mounting mechanism there is down there, wrapped a piece of spaghetti tubing around the coil, tied a little knot up on top, and then put some glue on it. So this little strap you see running around is what's holding it in place. As long as it works okay, I'll leave it alone, but if I had to, I suppose I could transplant it from the other set. But boy, it does not look like a whole lot of fun to muck around with. Alright, so I pulled out most of the tubes, including the rectifier, I'm going to try to turn it on. I've got my AC voltmeter on one side of the secondary. So one side's clipped to the ground, and the other's clipped to one side of the other. I'm not sure which. So if all goes well, we should see a few hundred volts on this. The two tubes I left in there should light up, and possibly the dial lamp if it's still good. It's kind of hard to get at. I haven't checked it. At least I assume there's a dial lamp inside that mechanism somewhere. Let's see, is there one on the schematic? I guess that's what 49 is. So without further ado, that's on. I dialed into about 115, and now here we go with this. Do have an inline fuse in the power cord, plus the PR57 would protect me as well. Alright, I'll take that. 323. Kill these xenon lights that I've been frying under while making this video. Ah, tube's lit up. Hey, look at that. Alright, after all years of owning this radio, I can finally see the dial lit up. Alright, so I thought the light might travel with the pointer. I can see now it's just a fixed light bulb up at the top. Not as exciting as I thought it might be. Oh well. And yeah, these are low power tubes. They're not exactly glowing very brightly. Plus I haven't tested these tubes, I don't think, so it's probably something I should do. Plus I also need to dig up a 6A8. This is one of the chassis nuts missing from that too. I know I have some 6A8Gs because I specifically sought them out at a couple radio swap fests ago, because I knew I'd need them for both this radio and a few others. Okay, so I gotta scare up some tubes and test a few I've got out here already, and check that speaker. I think there might be some loose wires I need to attend to. Alright, I've populated all the tube sockets. Now I'm checking out the speaker. Alright, so we've got 3 connectors on the speaker. Those correspond to green and white going to the output transformer, and the third one is this guy going to the field coil. Other side of the field coil is that same white wire that goes up to the output transformer. Alright, now we've got a connector here. We don't have those colored wires. Those colored wires are on the other side. Of course, they've all faded, but not too hard to trace these out. So this wire, the one that does not have any breaks in it, goes over inside here, the field coil, as does the other one that doesn't have any breaks in it. So field coil, and I peeled off the cloth tape here and the other splice here. These are the 2 wires going to the output transformer. So for whatever reason, somebody decided they needed to splice wires into the output transformer. I'll unwrap this one too and cut off the stub. You can see they cut it away. There's some strands that are frayed out. Oh, and of course that goes right up inside the transformer, so I guess I'll just have to live with that. I can't replace the wire very easily. Now, other side of the output transformer. Oh, you know what? Maybe, no, I was going to say, maybe that's a replacement, but it's riveted on. It sure looks to be the original, so. Because on this side, there's also some funkiness going on. So, well, perhaps the cone was replaced at some point. I don't know. What I'm getting at is the 2 little flexi wires come off the voice coil are messed with. For some reason, this red one was just barely making contact with this wire, which goes up to here. Well, there's plenty of room. Why not just attach this right up here? Why is there an extension wire on it that wasn't even soldered on? Don't know. This one, at least it's soldered on, I think. Yeah, it is. And that is going to this weird strap that goes inside of here, and then it comes out the other side. It goes over to here. That is the humbucking winding. I think it's wound such that it's counter to the field coil. That helps reduce or eliminate hum. So I am going to clean this off, carefully expose a little bit more of this wire, maybe I can work with what's there, and solder this wire directly onto that. Clean up this mess. Let's also check the resistance on this. So I'm not 100% sure what's what, but I think this one is probably the output transformer. I don't appear to give you any guide as to how that socket's wired up. Oh well. It shouldn't be too hard to figure out if it's still good. So let's see, what do we get here? 1.6K field coil. This is 1140. I got 1640. At least it's not open. Oh, I wonder. I bet I know what I've got going on here. I bet I've got one side connected here through the field coil, through the output transformer to the other side. 400 plus 1140 will give you 1540, pretty close to what I've got. So let's check over here. Yep, there's the 400 and change, that's the output transformer. This should just be the field coil. 1200, close enough. Alright, excellent. And I suppose having this voice coil broken off did me a little bit of a favor, because now I can check this. With that being connected, it'd be two coils in parallel, and if you check it, you're not quite sure if you're really checking both of them. Alright, cool. Virtually a dead short, as it should be. And I've never found a bad voice coil, but I'll check it anyways. Hard to clip on that little flexible wire there, but yeah, it's fine. Cool. Okay, I got the speaker plugged in, and I left the insulation off the spliced wires for the time being, so it gives me a handy place to clip on my DC voltmeter. Cleaned up the secondary output transformer connections, so alright, here we go. And the radio on. Okay, get about 390 volts DC. Should go down as tubes warm up. Got noise out of the speaker. Don't know what band I'm in. There's an antenna hooked up. That's G, and it's a pretty powerful station. Even without an antenna, you should be able to pick it up. Okay, it's a positive sign. Nothing there. Nothing there. Well, not a good sign. So I don't think it's an issue with this being bad. Could be a local oscillator not running, could be an IF issue, or could be a really weak tube. Oh, before I was thinking the pilot light might rotate with the dial. So I was wondering what this big block was here. I thought there might be something like a light inside there or something. I think it's just a counterweight. It's just a big block of cast aluminum. There's a counterweight to this side. This does feel nice when you turn it. And I just hooked up a conventional tuning cap, and I'll have to replace these mounts at some point. I do have some replacements on hand. Kind of rock hard. Alright, so I was hoping I'd get lucky, but considering how confusing this was to work on, oh well. I'm checking the local oscillator right now by just hooking up my scope to the cap on the 6A8. And there it is, and as I rotate the dial, it changes in frequency. Not the prettiest looking thing, but I don't know that that's really the best test point, but at least it gave me something. Let's see if I get a frequency on that. 10 megahertz. No, that is not right. That is way too high in frequency. I'm on a shortwave band, maybe. Let's try going to the other band. Oh, it looks terrible. Two megahertz. Okay, that kind of makes sense for a low frequency band. About 1 megahertz here. Well, I found one source of trouble. I had a 6K7 in this radio, which is a pentode. Should be a 6K5 triode in this socket here. Now, when I was poking around with the other chassis and comparing the two, in that socket, I found a 6SF5, and there had been some wiring changes. Maybe that was to boost gain. 6K5, not the most common tube. It took me a while to rooting around to even find one, and it's not quite the same style. It's got this integral shield around the base. That was another style, so instead of relying on a base shield in the chassis, you just put a shield in here. I'm going to give this a try. Which can potentially be a problem because it fits in there. Because I believe, I'm going to double check it, is that the shield is connected to pin 1, which is normally unused. I'm going to make sure that's not used as a tie point on anything in the radio that could cause trouble. Okay, pin 1 isn't going to anything, so should be okay on that front. And yeah, the shield is connected to pin 1 on that tube. Alright, so let's give this another try. Tube's lit up. The volume control's not doing anything now. There's tuning. Yeah, check this out. I believe this is how the switch works. Oh, that's starting to do something. Get back to that in a moment. What I want you to see was this. There's an inner track here, and it's kind of grungy, but it's, for me rotating this, it's getting cleaner. That, I believe, is the switch that disables the audio. It's a little contactor that rides, so when I've got this knob anywhere but pushed all the way in, there's a little nub there that makes contact. When I push this in, right there, it pops it out, so it's not making contact anymore. So I believe, unless I'm in this position, it's shorting out that volume output. Which means when you're doing this, I shouldn't be able to tune any stations in. It should be kind of annoying. I don't know how you're supposed to be able to tune in a station freehand, maybe you're not supposed to be able to. Or maybe, like if you want to get a station that was near one of these cones and you push this in, it engages the cone and knocks this over. So I gotta read up a little bit on that, how that control works. But let's turn this back on. It seems like I was just maybe starting to get something coming through. Get back in GN again. Oh, now I do have a little antenna hooked up, by the way. See, if this was working right, well, one, the volume control should be doing something, but also I should set noise should be coming through when I do that, or do this IF tube. Ooh. Ow! I don't have these tube shields on, which just cause some trouble, but well, sometimes these tube sockets aren't the greatest, and I'm wondering, I might have some issues with bad contacts. I should really search around more for a 6kg too, so a 6kgt. I guess I can pop the shield on. Wow, is that loud? Okay, and that's responding to volume. Okay. So it seems like from here down, at least, something's getting through. Now, there's always a possibility you got a bad IF. What I'm inclined to try doing, though, is to do what's on the other radio and to disable that kill switch, so it's just so I can tune like this and it'll work properly, or it won't be muting the sound while I'm doing that. Before I take that switch out of the circuit, I wanted to see if it was actually doing anything. So I got my ohm meter ground to that point, and it's not working. And I also read up a bit on how it's supposed to work. So when you're all the way out, as far as this can pull out, the kill switch should be engaged. So right now, that should be reading about 0 ohms. It's not. As you push this in, there's a click right about there, and you can kind of feel it too. There's a notch. Right now, the kill switch should be disengaged, and then you can tune manually. So when you're in this position, you should be able to do this and hear sound. Pull out a little bit, kill switch engage. And then when you go all the way in, there's that other switch. So there's not only this lever down here that engages a switch, but there's also a switch inside here, and that's why there's this wire. So it's a rather fiddly little arrangement. Now you'd think the switch in here would be enough. I'm not quite sure why. I wonder if it's that sensitive. It's supposed to be that sensitive that when you're all the way out, kill switch. Going a little bit, let sound through a little bit more, disengages again, and then all the way down. In other words, it only lets sound through when you're in this position right here, or it's all the way in. I think that's the way it's supposed to work. So only get sound when you're like this, manually tuning, or it's all the way down. So you can see on here, jumps around a little bit, but it's clearly not working right. I suspect inside here, which looks a bit complicated, it's messed up. So we got, looks like it's some kind of adjustment here, and then a wire goes in the center of that. Yeah, I could try taking this apart, and it's probably dirty inside. Loosen this up, loosen that up. But look at the radio playing first before I start. Hey, kind of did something there for a second. So I imagine it's, hey, right there. It is, but I'm also in between the cones, and I jam this all the way down, which is not something you would normally do. Normally have it like that. Huh, and there it's grounded, and I'm in a cone, depressed all the way. It should not be grounded right now. That's killing the sound. Oh, and now it's staying grounded all the time. So I rotate it a little bit. Yeah, it's got to be messed up. Yeah, I'll just go ahead and disconnect this wire in there. It's definitely disabled. And then continue on with the troubleshooting. The voltage on this 6K7 was a little funky, so I tested it and found out that it was bad, so I swapped that out with another one. Probably should have tested those tubes more thoroughly to begin with. Let's see if that made any difference. Hey, weird action on this volume control though. Nothing. Increasing home. Drops down. And then I get volume coming through. And tuning like this is definitely not an easy thing to do. It's way too twitchy. Alright, that's GN. This must be broadcast mode. Doesn't sound very good. This is with the volume at 100%. So maybe I will end up using another volume control after all.
A couple days ago, a guy named Nathan went on Reddit, and if you're not familiar with
And this just slipping. Because I don't have that grip surface in the back of the knob.
he went on Reddit, and he said that he got a post.
I just push the cone in. It's not too far off for GN. Let's try BBM.
For you to buy a car. And when we can't deliver your new Ford through the computer,
These are the stations I don't think exist anymore.
just I'll tell you one exciting thing about being a pastor. Every time I get in the past.
Good old Radio Disney. Tone control seems to be doing something. So, no highs. Lots of highs. More highs. And radio off. That sounds the best there. The station's just becoming a lot louder than the others I've tuned in, which is weird because normally I have a really hard time picking it up at all. Or it's fainting at any rate. So it seems like the higher frequencies are coming through much stronger than the lower frequencies. That's booming volume. Weird volume control. It's like the first 50%, it's just nothing, useless. Just kicks it at the very end. Almost like it's a logarithmic pot. I think it has the right part number on it though. Just give a shortwave try for the heck of it. We're in the wee hours now. Didn't quite finish this on a Friday night. I've spilled over into Saturday morning. Oh, I got the antenna. Actually, I have no antenna hooked up. That clip fell off. Oh, that could explain poor gain. Okay, now I'm impressed that with no antenna, it was working that well. Let's see. I think the center one is for broadcast, and I want to retry the broadcast now, and then I'll flip over to try shortwave. Getting a little tired. I've been working on this radio longer than I thought. I'm starting to get a little stupid.
Biblical wisdom from Dr. Stanley, daily devotions, and help for today's issues. Take it wherever you go.
Okay, the center one is not broadcast. That probably is shortwave. Reception got better than I used on this. Hook up the other end. Got a long wire antenna flopping around up here. Just gotta fan the end of it. Yeah, it's like a 20-foot long wire I just hooked up. Okay.
The ultimate Senate Court match. Roger, congratulations. A 9th Wimbledon final. The pillar and bulwark of truth. Yes, reasonable people looking at the scriptures may have difficulties with one.
Arrest the healthcare workers if they talk about it.
Right.
But yet you have
Hold for me, sure. What's your name? Diva.
She's based in Dallas.
looking in at him. Now that's kind of where the story stops.
I can't pick up 740 out of Canada. I would actually be playing some oldies music.
Dissociative disorder.
Alright, so not the greatest reception, but I haven't done any an alignment yet. Let's check shortwave. Imagine shortwave would improve if I actually grounded the chassis to a real ground. Might also be the wrong time of day to pick up stuff on this band. There's a little something.
Cuyos métodos incluyen dosis altas de píldoras anticonceptivas o el uso intrauterino después de una relación sexual. Pero esto
There's barely a station. Alright, well, I got another way I can more readily test that, which is to fire up one of my RF generators. One of these days I'll do a dedicated video on this nifty 8657. For now, it's enough to know that it's a very nice RF generator that can do AM modulation. So let's see, we're at 10 megahertz right now. Do some AM modulation, 1 kilohertz, 55%. Alright, should be good enough. See if I can pick anything up. Yeah, I think that was it. Jeez. It's definitely working on shortwave. Just to prove that, I'm going to turn on. Boy, is this thing hard to tune. Let's go a little higher. Try 15 megahertz. The dial's pretty accurate. Pull it all the way up to 19. About down to about 6. How about the lower frequencies? Let's do 1 megahertz. Broadcast band. There it is. That dial's only off a little bit. Let's take it up to 1700 and 1.7 megahertz. Yeah. Other end. Now I got the volume at 100%. So definitely not sensitive. Oh, that's right, I keep forgetting. I got the antenna in shortwave position. Not broadcast. Oh, that's better. Oh, alright. You actually do simultaneous AM and FM modulation if you want with this thing. Alright, so that's going to be it for tonight. I'm beat. So it's not exactly 100% restored, but hey, I got it working. See, that's kind of why I stopped doing these Friday night restorations. Is
Owned by 5 or fewer people.
most of the projects I have left, they're just too much to do in one night and do them well and carefully. Alright, anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this Friday night restoration of a Philco 38.7 chairside, and no doubt there will be a follow-up, because clearly I still have a bit more work to do on this. Clean up those electrolytics, and fix up the tube bases. See if I could fix the kill switch while you're tuning, and do an alignment. And of course mount it back in the cabinet at some point.